I'll start with a short introduction. So my name is Nanuk. I'm a cloud developer for SUSE, and I work technically as a systems management engineer and on our OpenStack product, that's SUSE OpenStack Cloud. I have to say, similar to the colleague that spoke before me, I'm more a developer than a speaker. So yeah, I'm also a bit nervous and not that experienced, but I guess we will figure that out and you can still understand me. And if not, yeah, please ask questions. We will also have a Q&A session in the end. Yeah, I created the slides together with a colleague of mine, Rick Zalewski, who cannot be here today, so I'm giving the talk on my own. So that might be that I don't know all the details of all the slides I am presenting. In the worst case, if you have any questions, I have an email on multiple slides. You can either ask me here or send me emails, and I will try to give you the correct and pleasing answers. Yeah, then I'm working for SUSE, and we have that nice chameleon, the gecko, at our booth, and we don't want to take it back home, so we thought to give it away during the talk, maybe for the nicest question or whatever. Yeah, one of you can have the gecko, and I can tell you kids love it, so take your chance. Then, yeah, I guess that's it. So much for the introduction. I will first talk a little bit about upgrading in general, why we are doing it, what we are doing there. Then discuss some common upgrade strategies, ways how to upgrade your cloud. Then comes the more interesting part and the more technical part, what we did to upgrade while skipping an OpenStack release. And that was what we were doing during the last development cycle, and currently we are working on the Non-Disruptive Upgrade, where we again are skipping OpenStack releases, but then we can also do the upgrade without interrupting the workload. Yeah, that's interesting, and currently work in progress, but will be finished soon. We release end of that year. Just for completeness, I will also show you some details about the orchestration we are using for everything. And I will finish with some goals we have for our development and for upstream contributions for the future. Okay, if I may ask you, who here has already upgraded an OpenStack Cloud? Yeah, quite a few. Thanks. So you already know what I'm talking about. Why do we upgrade? What an upgrade in general is, it means we do update the code base on our deployments on a running system. Why are we doing that? For some reasons, we want to have access to security fixes or stability improvements and performance improvements that got added to OpenStack during the last development cycle. Some people just want to closely follow upstream development to get access to the new features, or just to stay on a supported release. As you probably know, upstream does not support releases that long. And yeah, if you want to get all the benefits of having support, you need to stay on a current release. Okay, and I'm not sure, some did already do upgrades, but who liked it? Is there anyone who liked doing an upgrade? Yeah, that's something we hear a lot. So there are a number of problems that are coming when doing an upgrade. Usually downtime happens, which nobody wants. It needs a lot of preparation, like interested parties need to get coordinated, it needs to get scheduled, tested, and announcements need to get written, and so on and so on. It's not so much fun. With new code, sometimes workflows change and they need to adjust it and adapt it. With new code, everybody knows that too. We try to avoid it, but new code often means new bugs. And yeah, some things can go wrong. It can even go as far as we have data loss or corrupted databases or things like that. And if we look at, I cannot laser point here, but there is some comment from the OpenStack user survey from the last one. The lowest point I have on the right, frequent releases, keeping up in an operational working deployment model is hard to achieve. From the product side, we also see some customer demands. Customers always want to have as little downtime as possible, and they want to reduce the downtime they have in their deployments. They preferably want to have a live upgrade available, the possibility to roll back if something goes wrong. They want a clear documentation of what is happening and when is it happening and how is it happening during the upgrade process, and that also needs to get created and maintained. And some just want to not do every upgrade, but skip one or more releases. That's what we saw from our customers, so we started working on that. As just outlined, there is many factors coming in when discussing or talking or thinking about upgrades. I created another slide to summarize that a little bit. When we have a release, first thing that's happening is that we evaluate the release. Then we have to plan an upgrade and test it, and that's sometimes happening in iterations. At some point, the upgrade is conducted. Then follows fine-tuning because some things have changed and new features are getting integrated. And with a release cycle of 6 months, and all those things take quite a while. With a release cycle of 6 months, there's usually the next release already there available. So some people, at some point, operators may decide to just don't do the upgrade that time. And if we look at some other diagram I take from the user survey, at any given time you can see there is a lots of old OpenStack releases still in production. So apparently not every operator cares to upgrade his system or does that with some delay. This has some consequences. So security fixes or some other patches, they eventually need to get backported. And if operators at some point decide to do the upgrade, there is no clear and defined upgrade path anymore. They can either do step by step, say from Havana to ISOs to Juno to Kilo to Liberty, or start again. So much about the background. Some common upgrade strategies that do exist or that I have seen. There is the official upgrade process that asks the operators to always upgrade to the next release with a release cycle of 6 months. This has to happen regularly. And this comes with a high maintenance cost. So unexpected changes can break an update or upgrade. It involves lots of manual effort. And operators have to suffer the upgrade pain regularly. And this is also a drain on the staffing, who would rather do something more interesting or nicer than upgrades. A way to rather avoid upgrades is running continuous deployment. That's where you always stay on master. But this is quite risky. And it also needs a lot of development manpower for debugging and code reading and testing and bug fixing. But on the upside, you always run the latest and greatest code. You don't have big upgrades. It's just incremental changes. But this is not really, I think for the most environments, this is not enterprise ready. Another way, also more like avoiding upgrades, is just to start from scratch and create a new deployment with a new release, and then set up projects, users, instances again. But this is a lot of duplicated work, with the upside that you at least get rid of outdated artifacts, like users that are not existing anymore, or instances that are running for a year and nobody knows why and who is using that. I guess most operators at least have seen that before. A variant of that is just to deploy the controllers again and then at some point change the API endpoints and to move the workload that way. For both that ways, unless you can take a lot of downtime, you need redundant hardware. Then some other graph from the user survey. There's lots of deployment frameworks out there, and lots of different and hand-tailored setups. And there's a variety of deployment solutions with very scenario-specific use cases, and they also usually need a specific upgrade path and ways. Good. Now let's come to the more interesting part and the more technical part. What we did to skip an OpenStack release. The high-level overview is, we did that as part of developing our product. Our customers were running Juno at that point, and the latest OpenStack release was Liberty, so we were doing the upgrade from Juno to Liberty. And you probably know that the release that is skipped there is Kilo. It's a multi-step process with some steps happening on the Juno deployment and some on the Liberty deployment. During that time, the cloud is not fully operational. We have some downtime, which we are fixing right now, and with where we are in the current development cycle. More as a requirement from the product side and not so much from the OpenStack side. We are in the process. We want to be able to do an operating system upgrade. And in that case, we need to do a full reinstall. So that's also possible. It's not in every case needed, though. So the idea is to do an orchestrated reinstallation while skipping the Kilo release. What we have to do there is, one thing is we have a number of database migrations, and they have to be in order. So we have to manage that or handle that. Similar for the config files. For every release, the config files change, and we have to follow that. We still have the downtime, and it's a disruptive operation. But we don't need extra hardware for that. The requirements that are following up are that we need some orchestration mechanism. That was like in the early development stages. We did it manual, and you can also use, we moved on to scripts or some systems management tool like Ansible or Puppet, or what we are already using for the cloud anyway, it's Chef. So we let Chef in the end do the work, and I will show you some steps, the manual steps. Of course, we're not doing them manually, but we have the framework do that for us. We need enough disk space on the controller node, as we are duplicating the database at some point. And depending on the deployment, that can need some extra gigabyte. And it's highly recommended to have the Nova Compute data on a shared disk, because we need to preserve the data. And when we do that, and we need to reinstall nodes, copying the data can take everything from hours to days or eventually weeks, depending on the deployment. So having that on a shared volume is much easier. Okay, now we are coming to the actual implementation. Some preparations we had to do in advance was find out how the config files, the OpenStack config files changed, and what we had to do to take Juno config files and adapt them so they are still running, working with the Liberty release, similar from the migrations. And this took quite some time and needed some work. And we also found some bugs there. I just screenshotted some random bug report, similar bug report there to fill some space on the slides. Okay, then one thing we had to do to create the backups and to reduce the downtime. We disabled all the OpenStack services on the controller nodes that had write access to the database. And to avoid doing them unwanted things if nodes reboot for whatever reasons, then shutting them down. Then we could create the backup of the database. That's also the time to create backups of other important data, if we have that there. And then we can shut down all the rest of OpenStack. Then follows setting up the new OpenStack Cloud, where we reinstall the host with the new operating systems if it's required, and install the new OpenStack packages, and they need to be able to cope with a database that's coming. So it's Liberty packages, and they need to be able to cope with a database that's still on the Juno state. Then updating the service configuration and starting the configuration management, so everything is up to date and has the right configuration. Then we can start the database service again and upload or restore the backup. The tricky part here is doing all the migrations that are needed. That has to be done as documented by upstream for the upgrade. And special commands might need porting. We found from Juno to Liberty, we found one exception that was for the Nova service. There was some special migration happening during the Kilo release, the release that we skipped. We started with Juno packages and ended up with Liberty packages, and we never had Kilo packages deployed on any node. So what we did was do the last Kilo migration with, the command is written there, Nova managed dbsync version 290, yes, that's the Kilo migration. Then we had to migrate the flavor data. There was a special command for that, Nova manage db migrate flavor data. But this command was not available at Liberty anymore because it was just happening during Kilo and got removed from the code base. So we had to take it out again and create a patch and port it to Liberty. So we could run the migration, and then we could finish the database migration. And then we have OpenStack Liberty deployed on all the hosts, and the database is in the right state, so we can launch all the OpenStack services again. And now we have a fully running and complete OpenStack Liberty deployment again, and we just have to check if everything is running, but now everything should be fine.
How much downtime?
Sorry?
How much downtime?
It depends on the deployment, but in a perfect situation, it's just some. Actually, like reinstalling the operating system, if you do that, it takes 1 or 2 hours. And that can be enough. Of course, if you have, migrating the instances, copying data, it can have no end, technically. If you are concerned about downtime, next I'm doing the non-disruptive upgrade. In the perfect case, we have a downtime of some minutes only. And during that process, we found some issues. The configuration file migration took a lot of time and work and testing because options get deprecated, and and just figuring out all the combinations that customers have deployed, and if they are still working as expected on the new release. That can be complicated and tricky. Getting all the migrations right was also a bit more complicated. Then what we have in that process right now, it's we only can do the full upgrade. We cannot upgrade Nova, but keep Keystone on an old version or something like that. We do upgrade the full OpenStack stack. It's also still a predefined upgrade. We still can only do that from Juno to Liberty and not Icehouse to Kilo or something. That's not possible. We can just, it's hand-tailored right now, so we can just skip certain releases. And some general remark. Having backups handy is always helpful and nice. Everybody knows that, nobody, or not enough people do that, me myself included. Just wanted to put it on the slide. Okay, so we had solved some of the requests our customers had. So now the upgrade cycle, the length of an upgrade, usable upgrade is doubled. It's if you always stay on the newest product code, it's 1 year now. But we still have the downtime, which also nobody likes. So right now we are working on an upgrade process that is non-disruptive. And it's almost finished. So what are we doing here? Again, a high-level overview. It's still work in progress, but almost finished. We are now our customers or The past upgrade was from Juno to Liberty, and now we want to upgrade to Newton. So we have Liberty code base, and we are skipping Mitaka, which is the current release, and upgrading to Newton, which is, I think, coming soon. I think it's not released yet. This is non-disruptive. The workload remains in use and is still working, but we have to live with some short API downtime, which means that we cannot start new instances for a moment, for a while. It should not be that long. But everything that's running continues to run. Yeah, and technically there will be some, it's like, I think twice we have a short network outage. That's like when we're migrating instances and when we're migrating the L3 routers. But that's only like network hiccup, a second or so. And yeah, how are we avoiding service disruptions? In general, for the upgrade process, most steps are very similar to the previous upgrade process. What we are making use of this time is that we deploy OpenStack in an HA environment. That means we have our services deployed on clusters, on multiple nodes, where if one node fails, we have a failover mechanism and another node takes over the service. And what we are using here is we take one node out of the cluster, upgrade it to Newton, the same way we did it for Liberty before. Then make that the single controller node of the deployment. And then we upgrade the other controller nodes, and then we can restore the HA cluster again. Yeah. So for that, it's a sequential upgrade of hosts to Newton. And for that time, we have no HA support for a while. And for during the database migration, at some moment, we also have no write access to the database. So as mentioned, we cannot start new instances, for example. Still, everything that was running is still running. And a short API downtime, just mentioned. Okay, and we are keeping the workload running. How we are doing that? We also have an additional requirement for that we need one free compute host that's big enough to store or maintain a number of instances. What we are doing is we are taking one compute host, migrating all instances away from that host, upgrading that host to Newton, then migrate all instances from another compute host to the upgraded one, and upgrade then the new empty one, and so on. And at some point, we have all compute hosts upgraded to Newton, and that's also the point where we have a fully updated Newton OpenStack deployment, and with no downtime for the workload. Yeah, and that was the non-disruptive upgrade. It's already working for Mitaka. We just working on the Newton packages right now. Yeah, just for completeness, some information about the orchestration. I talked a number of steps we are doing here. And of course, we don't want to make that manually or from hand. We are using some orchestration framework. In our case, we use Crowbar to deploy and build and administrate our OpenStack deployments. Crowbar is a Ruby on Rails application which provides a web interface, a user interface for the administrator, and uses Chef in the backend, which configures all the hosts and handles the OpenStack deployment. And as part of that, we also do all the upgrade operations. There is a user interface. It's basically a click-through interface for the upgrade, which does some checks. And it's for the operator, he basically just has to click next, next, next. Has the option to abort the upgrade at some point if he does not like it. There's also some sanity checks during the process. If the system is not in a state where we can do a successful upgrade, it won't happen. And that's just a random screenshot from from the upgrade process. Okay, so some goals, what we are working now, what we want to do in the future. Yeah, of course, we are finishing the non-disruptive upgrade process. We want to also work on even more reducing the downtime for important services, maybe avoid even the short network out times, for example. Yeah, also I'm not sure how much impact this has on services like Magnum, for example. Yeah, reverting upgrades, it's technically possible. Right now, the biggest problem is on the packaging side. Still, there is some work we can do there, and of course, we want to improve our orchestration framework and methods we have. Then, yeah, the config files, they are right now not very organized, and they're changing a lot from release to release. So we'd like to work on that and make them, at best case, automatically upgradable. So we can, like, we don't have to manually look at changes from one release to another, but can do that automated and adapt the config files. Uniform configuration files would be nice for that. It would be nice if it would always be possible to migrate data from every point, so we don't need to backport or forward port migration tools like the command I displayed earlier. Yeah, the rollback option and non-disruptive upgrades also need some more upstream involvement. Okay, and actually, I'm already done with, that was quick, with my talk. And yeah, are there any questions?
So just for the questions, wait until I come to you with a microphone so that we can record them.
Thank you.
Hello, Gabriel Paus is my name. One question about this, since you have doing a lot of work with this, and I think that this is something that many customers want. They think that the pace of OpenStack deployment or new releases are very fast. Do you see any kind of collaboration with OpenStack Foundation to be able to provide an alternate upgrade path or something like that, so you can skip every second release and that would actually be supported from the kind of main branch? You know what I mean?
I'm not involved much with upstream development. As far as I know, there is. We try to upstream every changes we do, every patch we do. We try to upstream, but as far as I know, there is no big collaboration with upstream projects or other contributors.
Yeah, and another question also about the configuration files. You said there were a lot of manual work when it came to kind of migrating configuration files from Juno to Liberty and Liberty to Newton, but there must be some kind of scripts that does this for Juno to Kilo to Liberty. Couldn't you kind of reuse those even if you're not going live with the Kilo configuration files, or how do you do it? Is that maybe a...
I'm not aware of any scripts or
well, I was thinking a kind of main way of upgrading. Like, how is that path been done? There's no such things.
Not as far as I know, but then I was not working on that. So I would like to have Rick here now to ask him. But I'm sorry. Okay. But you can mail me. I can look it up. We have it, the information available somewhere. It's just not on stage yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, more questions? I think I saw some hand there. Maybe it was a mirage. Any more questions? Okay, so, Ray?
Yeah, quickly, comment. Yeah, I can quickly comment. I think often when you're migrating configuration files, for example, when we did the upgrade, we just recreated them using the configuration management. And often the changes are in the configuration management. For example, if you use the Puppet modules, they are already there. So, I don't know, I don't know if there's any upstream thing.
So, yeah, we are using Chef, and we are our own upstream there.
Yes, this was a really interesting topic to me, and I agree with what he is saying, but the truth is, if you feed your configuration values to your configuration management system again for the new version without manually doing the work, as he is saying, it's not going to work. So, manual work.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, more questions. I have one actual question that I wonder. Okay, so this example was about Kilo. So in some future, you might do this again. So what are the most valuable artifacts that you will be able to reuse from this experience, except for the best practices? Did you build some tools, some specific tools for that, or you will just have to kind of do it all again in the future?
No, it's mostly the knowledge, the experience with skipping one release that we are sure that it works and that it's not much work to make the components, like do the migration from Juno to Liberty. That, I mean, it's a nice experience to do it once, and then we know it works, and we can do it, but not so much from the automation side that we can take out of that, I think.
And the follow-up question: how much kind of internal knowledge about the actual deployment you have to do that? Because I guess in that case you kind of had perhaps some knowledge about your deployment. And let's say you go to a totally different deployment, and can you apply exactly the same things and it will work, or you have to know more about the actual needs?
If it's a deployment we support, you don't have to know anything about it. It will just work. Of course, for the development, we need to know all the cases we are supporting to make sure they are working. But for the customer, if he's running a supported deployment, click, click, click.
Sounds like
that's what we say.
Sounds like a dream, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is always like no deployment is similar to any other. Every customer has some special use cases and some network setup, whatever, and we are supporting it. And yeah, sometimes we have to look at it again for the upgrade. But in general, the end user does not have to have much knowledge about it.
Sounds great.
We have the user interface, the web interface, and that should be enough.
Excuse me. So please use the microphone.
Importantly, as a SUSE guy, if you do run into trouble, it's our problem. Yeah. So you bought support, so it becomes our issue, and we will fix it.
All right. Any more questions? Oh, okay. That's better.
As part of the upgrade, how do you verify that it was actually successful? Because sometimes things can creep up, a day or two later after the upgrade.
Then we see it.
Do you have some kind of test package, or?
Sorry?
Do you have some kind of test package that you run, or some kind of checklist that you go through?
So we are doing it for development. We are testing like the upgrade processes, and we are running Tempest and everything. But like Tempest to some degree breaks deployment, so we are not doing that at the customer's system.
Okay. So if there are no more questions, then we can thank the speaker once again. And then we meet again here at 3:15. And of course, you can grab him and ask things.
Yeah, thank you. And before we end it, sorry? No.
No.
So I like your questions. They were most detailed, or at least for the beginning. So do you want to have the Gecko? Can you bring it home?
My kids want to.
Yeah. Okay, then we have a proud winner. And then, yeah, thank you, Nicola. Thanks, everyone, for your attention and your questions. Thanks.